Alright, so in this video, I want to go ahead and talk about a very important issue that I didn't bring up in the last video, but that I very well should have. And this is not only important when you're dealing with someone with BPD, and may not necessarily be important for DDD, but it can be, very much so. And I would say that this is an important factor just as it pertains to human relations in general. And it's part of the reason why we've seen such a growing toxicity between people. And that is the importance of apologies. We have tended to come up with innumerable excuses for why apologies aren't important, why they shouldn't be expected, why we shouldn't have to give them, why, etc., etc., etc. Now, I'm going to tell you flat out, there really is no defensible reason not to give an apology to someone that you have done wrong or that you may have hurt. Absolutely no defensible reason. There are people out there that say, well, it doesn't really matter because words are cheap and actions speak louder than words. And I tell people can lie with actions as well. You can act like someone is your friend, and then when it comes time that they actually need a friend, you can stab them in the back or just flat out disappear on them. It doesn't mean any more than the words do. You may say that, well, it doesn't change anything. It doesn't make the pain go away or whatever. And you're like, okay, well, it's not going to redeem you that you apologize. But that's not the point. Yes, the hurt is still going to be there from whatever you did. That much is guaranteed. But once again, that's not the point of apologizing. The point of apologizing is to let the person that you hurt know that you feel remorse for having hurt them. And that is something that we all should be able to cultivate. The lack of ability to feel remorse or sympathy for someone who we have wronged starts putting us in closer to the categories of serial killers and narcissists and sociopaths and all very, very bad, pretty much universally hailed as bad, negative human behaviors and human mindsets and human actions. We should be holding ourselves to a higher standard, and we should feel remorse for when we wrong others, especially in ways that we would never want to be wronged ourselves. And a lot of the times the reason why we're not willing to go there is plain and simple ego. We're trying to defend our egos. We're trying to protect ourselves from thinking that we've done wrong, that we have actually hurt someone that is meaningful to us, that trusted us, that we have betrayed them, and we're not willing to admit that because that would make us a worse person. And a lot of people have elevated themselves beyond that sense of wrongdoing in order to cope with moving forward. They essentially rationalize that if they do no wrong, then every step they take going forward is the right one, and they never have to question their past. They never have to stop and to grow from it by reflecting upon it or trying to make amends. They never have to develop in any of those ways that can be objectively more difficult than simply trying to ignore the issue. But in doing so, they not only wrong themselves, which is something that a lot of people don't realize, how greatly you are neglecting your own personal growth, but also um, while the apology doesn't make their pain go away, like I said, it lets them know that you are genuinely sorry for how you have hurt them. Um, my first pseudo relationship, and was also my last, um, by the end, I honestly couldn't tell whether she'd ever cared about me at all. And I couldn't tell whether anything she told me was actually true or honest, because she'd turned on a dime and basically betrayed everything that she'd said that she believed in. She, up to that point, she hurt me many, many, many times over in ways that I knew she knew was wrong, because she had shown concern for the way that other people had been treated when they'd been treated that way. But because this was her and she had to move forward, she convinced herself that the way she was treating me was okay, and was not willing to apologize for hurting me whatsoever. Um, and there are a lot of people out there that may be like, well, I've never, you know, had anyone apologize to me, and I'm one of those people. In at least from the female side. From the male side, I've actually received more apologies from the male side than the female side, which is um, kind of interesting when you consider neo male female dynamics and traditional male and female or masculine and feminine traits. Um, we have actually uh, just completely dismantled those at this point. Many of the attributes we associate with various groups no longer are tend to have ties to those groups, and we are seeing more of more like a hodgepodge of the old roles in each individual now. And part of that is actually experiencing apologies having come more from males than females. Um, and But I've learned from those apologies that I have gotten from the male side, especially from my father. And one of the things that I learned early on from him was that it does not matter whether you think that you were right or wrong. Um, it does not matter whether you believe that they should have been hurt by what you did or said, or whether they should not have, in your opinion. What matters is that you did hurt them and that you need to apologize for hurting them, because hurting people is wrong. And this is a concept we're seeing to be becoming more and more and more foreign. And as it does, we become more and more detrimental to each other. And more we see this psychology growing, that people are bad, that certain people are bad, that a whole bunch of people are bad, and there are just a few good people, and all these kind of things. And a lot of it has to do with the fact that we have alienated ourselves from the idea that hurting people is wrong. And part of the way that we've done this is by neglecting to apologize. That being said, um, a genuine apology is needed. If you have no remorse for what you've done, then you are not going to be able to give that genuine apology, even if you know you should be. And the only thing I can say here is that um, there was a time when I was younger, when I was at school, and me and another kid had gone at each other, and we were called in the principal's office and told, yeah, what you did was wrong, what you did, he did was wrong, but now we want you to apologize to each other. And he apologized, and I said, no, I'm not going to apologize. I'm not going to apologize because he hasn't given me a genuine apology. And as soon as I apologize, you're going to say, okay, it's done, and you're not going to hold him to that genuine apology. And I'm not going to give a false apology, because that diminishes the importance of apologies. It diminishes the function of an apology. And I'm not going to do that. But I deserve a genuine apology if I'm going to give one. And without realizing it, I'd really sort of hijacked uh, the situation, and I was sort of holding those people hostage for an apology. And that's, if anything, I should have been remorseful for that. I should have been remorseful for the fact that had not held myself to a higher standard than to go back at that person. I should have been remorseful for the fact that I had harmed another human being, and I should have been remorseful for the fact that I'd allowed myself to degenerate to the point that I no longer felt sympathy for that person, that I, as a Christian, should never have uh, allowed myself to lose love for my fellow man. It I had so much to be remorseful for. I had so much to apologize for in that moment, but I genuinely did not feel remorse in that moment. That being said, relative to some of the circumstances we find ourselves in, where we have done serious wrong to someone who meant a lot to us, and we have to own up to a lot more damage to our ego in order to allow that apology, that genuine apology, to take place. My example was actually a pretty mundane one. All right, it's not like I cheated on someone. It's not like I hit my significant other. It is not like I uh, betrayed a friend and stabbed them in the back when they came to me for help. It's not like I turned my back on a family member when they needed me most. Um, when I mean, it's not like I used my intimate knowledge of someone to do as much harm to them as possible. I haven't, I mean, it was nothing like that, and people have done all these things and more. And some of these things are places, some of these things we've done are things we should never ever ever do. And the reason why we should never, ever, ever do them is because of the damage that it causes our ego to have to own up to it. And when we're not willing to accept that damage, we don't own up to it. When we don't own up to it, we leave the question in that other person's mind whether or not they ever even cared. That will destroy relationships faster than anything else. And you will end up suffering this just as they suffered, and probably even more, because if they were really that great of a person, then you lost a really great person. That's a rarity nowadays. They lost someone who was fully willing to hurt them in excess and feel no remorse for it. Out of the two of you, arguably, the person who has failed to apologize for their wrongdoings has actually suffered more. And a time will come where that person may very well end up being unable to ignore the pain that they've caused and still have to suffer the destruction to their ego that they are so vehemently trying to keep from facing in the moment. So I would also say that as a society, when we fail to apologize to one another, there is a question not only of whether or not that person ever cared. There is the question of trust. Not only can I ever trust them, but it becomes a point when that lack of apology becomes a social dynamic. When that lack of remorse, that lack of sympathy becomes a social dynamic, whether anyone can be trusted anymore. And like I said, again, especially if there's someone close to you, someone who knew you intimately and used that intimate knowledge to hurt you. And that diminishes us as a society as well. So anyway, this has been a long video. I'm going to go ahead and end it here. But the point is, I would really challenge anyone who has been making excuses not to give apologies to the people that you have wronged, to those that you've hurt. I would strongly encourage each and every one of you to begin that process, learning to apologize, taking those hits to your ego for your own betterment, for your own personal development, for the development of in a positive way of those people that were special to you and to our society at large. And I will see you in the next video. Take care.